This is a very fun episode of the Encounter Faith podcast, everybody. My name is Ross, and I have the privilege of hosting these conversations. And today I have two guests. I've managed to get two people to come into the studio with me. So, Jess, I want to start with you. Can you introduce yourself and let folks know what you do for work?
Yeah, my name is Jess Schalk, and I'm the site manager of the Feed My Starving Children site in Aurora that many of you, I'm sure, have volunteered at. I've had the pleasure of working there for 15 years, and I'm really excited to be here today to talk about that.
Love that. And Mike, you're here too. Mike, I think there's odds are folks from Good Shepherd at least may have know you a little bit more than folks have known Jess because you've been here longer. But Mike, what do you do for work?
Yes. So I am the CEO of Loaves Fishes. Have been the CEO for almost 9 years. I've been on the board for about 16 years. And, as CEO, we help form the strategy of the organization as well as execution on our whole plan.
Yeah. Now, I want people to make sure, I want to over communicate some of the context here. So what does Loaves Fishes do?
Yeah. So Loaves Fishes has been around for 41 years. And we really address food insecurity and also help people become more self-sufficient. So we're probably best known for our food programs. Last year we provided 8.6 million pounds of food to people, about 20 tons of food on every distribution day. But we also have our CARES programs, which helps people become more self-sufficient. Sometimes people are doing okay and making ends meet, but something unexpected happens, a medical bill or a car accident or loss of job or a divorce, something like that. And then all of a sudden they need help. And we help keep them housed. We help assist them with rent or utilities, financial literacy, a whole host of other programs to help them become more self-sufficient.
Sure. And can you, just to make sure in case this is the first they've ever heard of Feed My Starving Children, what do you guys do?
Yeah, so Feed My Starving Children, not quite as long as Loaves Fishes, about 38 years. We've been in Aurora since 2008.
Listener, there will be a quiz later.
Perfect.
Make sure you know.
I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
We have volunteers from the community come in and pack dried food in an assembly line style process. We then have that food shipped all over the world to partners who distribute it to communities who need it the most. So we view our mission as twofold. One, to feed the bodies and spirits of God's kids everywhere around the world. We ship to over 50 partners in over 50 countries who are able to provide hope and nourishment for children who are starving. But equally, we try to be good partners in the community. Our goal is to have local volunteers come out and serve and give them an opportunity to do something tangible that can provide hope all over the world.
Love that. I was really glad that I got the chance to talk to both of you at the same time, because one of the things that I think is true for your organization, for both your organizations, if you've lived in Naperville for any length of time, is you're aware that these organizations exist. But I'm sensitive to the fact that it can kind of become existing in the background. And that's why I want to make sure we kind of highlight some of what you guys already talked about, which is what the current need looks like and what it means to partner with the organizations. We at Good Shepherd, we talk about being for our neighbors, but it's really important that that is not just a conversation, because I can put the phrase for our neighbors on a lot of banners and a lot of websites. But unfortunately, there's too many churches that are known for what they say rather than what they do. And I think that can be true for our community as well. So can you help me understand, Mike, I'll start with you. I'll use the phrase, the journey of the volunteer, what it looks like for someone who maybe has come for the first time, or what it looks like for someone who is coming alongside this community that you guys on your staff serve every day, but maybe someone who is come from the outside and now is fully bought in. What does that process look like?
Absolutely. So first of all, I want to say that without our volunteers, we don't exist in the form that we do, nor could we do what we do. And so the volunteers, I always say, do most of the work at Loaves Fishes, which is true if you count the number of hours. So
love that.
Volunteering is very easy. It's easy to just sign up on our website or talk to someone and give us a call. It's super easy to do. We provide volunteers with an orientation. Really, the only thing they need to know is how to drive to our facility. Once they get there, we give them orientation. We make sure that they know what they're doing, how to do it, why, how it fits into the whole picture as well, so they understand the meaning of what they're doing. So we try and make it easy. And there's many different kinds of volunteer opportunities. For example, you can be at a desk on a computer, or you can be interfacing directly with clients. You can be stocking shelves of food. So whether you want to do something that's physical or want to do something that's a desk job, lots of different opportunities. And also I'll say lots of different opportunities for mornings, afternoons, evenings, weekends. And so it's really, there's something that fits everybody from a volunteer perspective.
I love that. Just want to go to here because I think there's this perception. I want to use food insecurity because it's a commonality between your two organizations. I know you guys do more than food insecurity, but I think there's a perception that in the Naperville community, that's not a thing. Or in the Naperville community, that's something that happens over there. And just by serving in Aurora, you're not only experiencing folks who that isn't, because food insecurity is everywhere, but you're also getting to help folks open their eyes to it. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, a lot of people at Good Shepherd are aware of Feed My Starving Children through Feed the Need. The biggest, I would assume.
Not the biggest mobile pack, but really, we did one last year that was 10 million meals in Fargo. Wow. But Feed the Need now has something to strive for.
Okay, Illinois. We got to catch up to North Dakota. Let's go, everybody. Mm-hmm. But what I want to make that actually a question rather than just a rallying point. What I'm curious for you is similar to Mike. What does it look like for someone to realize the power of what they do in an hour, or the power of what they're able to do just on an assembly line?
I think it's incredible to see. And I echo a lot of Mike's sentiments that we rely so heavily on our volunteers. Each of our sessions, we have about 3 to 6 staff and anywhere from 10 to 185 volunteers. And if we tried to have our 3 to 6 staff do what those 185 volunteers could do, it would take a lot longer. But we try to eliminate as many barriers as possible that would stand in the way of someone volunteering. We encourage volunteers to register online. We do 5 sessions a day, 6 days a week. But if you just show up for one of our session times, we will have a job that you can do. We provide hairnets. We provide the information. We still get volunteers for whom it is their first time volunteering. I know you mentioned many people in Naperville are familiar with Feed My Starving Children, but I still meet people who say, I've never heard of that. And it's great to be able to share what we do with new volunteers who truly may not have an understanding of what is happening globally. And when they come to Feed My Starving Children and they hear the statistics of one person dies of starvation-related causes every 4 seconds, that's just, it's so hard to imagine what that statistic is like in reality. And what one person can do at Feed My Starving Children in an hour and a half with a group of volunteers and packing thousands of meals. There's really no other place where you can go. Maybe Loaves and Fishes. You can do a lot of great work at Loaves and Fishes.
Nice.
But there are so few places.
That's very diplomatic of you, Jess.
There
well done.
are so few places that you can go and in an hour and a half of time change the lives of hundreds of kids around the world who no longer have to worry where their next meal is going to come from. It's such a tangible, easy difference you can make.
Yeah. What's true about both your organizations, it's disingenuous for someone to say like, man, I'm so glad I got to do that for someone else. Because when you do it, you realize like, oh, this is for me. I'm having so much fun because being someone who's served in both of their organizations, it's just genuinely a lot of fun to do that. But also getting a sense of what it looks like to look at some of the, I'll use the phrase darkness that's in the world and feel like you're participating in bringing a light there, is a joy and a privilege every single time I've gotten to do it. Mike, what I'm curious about for you, thinking about some of the clients, I think there's this, like I mentioned earlier, there's this perception that the type of work you guys do is not something that happens in Naperville or not something that happens around here. What does it look like? How do you help break some of those perceptions for folks who maybe think this is someone else's problem or this is a problem that doesn't exist in this community?
Right. So I think communicating the overall need to people is important. So we serve 4 counties. We serve DuPage, Will, Kane, and Kendall counties. 2.3 million people, total population in those 4 counties. And what we know is 1 in 5 people of the 2.3 million are either in low income or under the poverty line.
Wow.
And when you're in low income or under the poverty line, you highly likely are food insecure. And I know sometimes I'll run into people and they say, hey, this is a well-to-do area around this, Naperville, DuPage County, so forth. I don't see it. I don't understand why there's a need and so forth. But what I always use is did you go to a restaurant example? Because if you went to a restaurant, somebody greeted you, somebody sat you down, gave you a menu, poured you water, gave you silverware, cooked your food, brought your food, clean, wash your dishes, set your table, took your credit card to pay. And if you look at, say, a restaurant as an example, many of those jobs do not provide a living wage for people.
Sure.
And so if you go to a restaurant, guess what? You just saw a lot of people that probably have a need, and maybe ironically so, because they're working in a restaurant, are food insecure.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that if you open your eyes to it, you can see it. But if you're just not really thinking about it, you may not see it.
That's a very helpful example, particularly because I think we also tend to paint a picture of what we believe food insecurity or housing insecurity or some of the stuff that Loaves and Fishes is able to help. Some of the societal challenges that Loaves and Fishes is able to help address. We paint a picture of what that looks like. We paint a picture of, this looks like this. And the reality is, having dug into some of this data, the most common misconception is thinking that something looks a different way.
Right.
Because the most common person who's food insecure has a job. It's just not providing a living wage for them or their family or both. What I'm curious about, and Jess, we can start with you, but this is a question for both of you. When you look at the scope of what your organizations do, I think it can become very easy to become overwhelmed by that. It can be very easy to become overwhelmed by the idea of a person dies of starvation-related causes every 4 seconds. And yet, there is so much hope in the work that you guys do. There's so much hope in the work that you guys do. How do you help, I guess for yourself as someone who's in this every day, how do you stay more connected to that hope rather than the problem that hope is trying to overcome?
That is a great question. And I think, you can't let despair overwhelm you. There is darkness in the idea of how many people are lost to starvation in the world. It's a hard number to comprehend, but I am not called by God to save every single person on this planet. That is a job that is too big for me. It might even be too big for Feed My Starving Children, but He has called me to do what I can with what I have to make a difference, to show up to work every day ready to feed His kids. And if I can feed one more kid, that is one more child who has hope for a future. And I don't want to make it sound like, it's not my responsibility to save everyone, but that is too big of a problem for one person. God wouldn't give that to one person. That's why He gives it to our community and to all of us to find the compassion in us, to find the drive in us. He calls for us to serve. And if through our serving we can save one person, that's worth it. So showing up to work knowing I can't do everything, but I can do something, I'm going to step up and do what I can do.
That's awesome. Mike, I want to specify the question to you a little bit, given the nature of your role. You said at the beginning, you're setting strategy, you're helping try to set goals. How can one person, particularly one volunteer, participate in your goals, knowing the scope of the work that you guys are trying to do, knowing how big your goals are? It would be very easy for me to say, well, that problem's too big for me to address, so I'm just not even going to lean in. How do you invite folks to lean into your goals?
It's because it takes everybody, really. It takes a community to pitch in and make it happen. Every one person adds up to a group. Every group adds up to, something bigger, maybe a community, maybe a city, maybe something else. But we rely on every single person to help out and to do what they do to make a difference. So it's completely a group project, if you will, to help fight food insecurity and help people in other ways. And so every single person has to be, on the oars and rowing, so to speak.
That's good.
Can I add in here? Because I think about, for those of you who have packed before, a packing station. If you're trying to pack and you don't have someone who can scoop vitamins, you are not going to pack any food. If you're trying to pack at a station and you don't have someone to hold the bag or seal the bag, every single role is important, and we need everyone in order for it to be successful. Yeah,
that's great. I will say at Feed the Need, I was dealing with my daughter heckling me about my bag sealing skills. That was a thing that happened on a pretty regular basis. So I'm going to try to find a different station for next year. But what I'm curious about, given that, is you guys also are organizations where you find organizations like Good Shepherd, you find community gathering points that can help facilitate opportunities for the individual. To ask a pretty broad question, what do you look for in a partner? What do you look for in an organization, and how that organization could help you achieve some of the goals of your that you guys are talking about?
Well, certainly, what we look for in a partner is hopefully they have some connection to the mission of what we're doing.
Sure.
Right? They don't have to be as immersed in it like we are every day, but at least we want some connection is good. Certainly, like with any relationship, there's got to be something that's helpful to both parties.
Sure.
There's got to be great communications, good expectations. That support that we get from Good Shepherd and other communities of people is just absolutely critical, and the partnership is multifaceted as well too. And I think the regularity as well, and having some cadence and some cycle, if you will, of working together is also very beneficial as well too. So hopefully that answered.
No, it does. Because what I want people to understand, especially if you call Good Shepherd your church home, which I know is not everyone who's listening, but I know is a lot of you, the partners that Good Shepherd reaches out to, the partners that Good Shepherd talks about, the partners that the Good Shepherd podcast has on, are done so with a level of intentionality. I think sometimes it's easy, especially for organizations like you guys, because you're such pillars of the community, for it to be like, well, everyone partners with Loaves Fishes. Everybody does a Feed the Need pack, right? And what I want people like Good Shepherd to understand is, like, there's deep relational ties here, and there's a very common shared mission. Because both of you said this to talk about the individual. Jess, you were talking about we will give you everything you need. You can literally just show up. You were talking about how all you need to do is know where we are. Because you said where to drive, and I'm like, I bet you would find someone who could drive you. If you're not someone who drives, I bet we could find someone to drive you there. And yet, I think it's easy for people not to participate. If you're listening, and especially if you're part of Good Shepherd, wherever you're listening in the show notes, there's specifics on what our volunteer schedule looks like, what our ongoing partnership looks like, the practicalities. If you have questions, I'll make sure you get connected with Janine Allen, who helps lead those efforts here at Good Shepherd. But a little bit more broadly, I'm curious, Mike, you touched on this a little bit. When can you tell, oh, this is a thing that's going to last? You volunteer for your first time, you're going to be back. Or, oh, you've started this organization partnership and you guys are going to be somebody who's with us for the long haul. I'm curious what makes a healthy partnership, because my thought here is healthy partnerships make a healthy community, and healthy communities help achieve the goals that we all have in common.
I guess I can start. There are different almost tiers of partnership. And really the first thing that we see with volunteers is, are they engaged when they're here? When they hear the open and the close and they're participating in the packing room, are they excited to be there? I have not encountered many people who aren't excited to be at FMSC. So most people we expect to be back. But the kind of the 4 ways that we ask volunteers to stay connected with us, first and foremost is always to pray. We're an organization that believes in the power of prayer. So if you are a praying person, we ask that you keep FMSC and the kids that we feed in your prayers. Second, we ask for volunteers to pack again, or pack for the first time if you haven't been. As I mentioned, we need volunteers to pack food. We need them to come in, to donate their time, to bring their friends who have never heard of Feed My Starving Children. Third is to support our marketplace, even if you don't have the time or availability to volunteer, which we make it very easy. You can come in, shop our marketplace. We sell items made all over the world by people who receive FMSC food so they can earn a fair wage. And then finally is to make a donation. So when we see groups that come in and they do more than one of those things, that's when we start to see, okay, not only has this group shown up, but they shopped at the marketplace, or they're making a donation to cover the cost of a pallet, or they've decided to host a mobile pack, which is a huge undertaking that requires lots of volunteers and lots of money and lots of space and lots of time. That's when we start to see a really strong partnership develop. But usually it starts with a group has volunteered once or twice, and then that's just the beginning of a beautiful journey.
Yeah. What does that journey look like for you, Mike?
Well, I would say that, first of all, with respect to volunteering, I mean, volunteering, when I see people come volunteer, more often than not, they are just excited and lit up, especially after they're done, because they have this great sense of feeling of they've done something positive. Hopefully it was a really great experience on exactly what they did and when they did it. And, a number of years ago, I did a whole presentation on the physical benefits of volunteering and what that does. And if you look at people, there's lots of studies on this, that people who volunteer, they live longer, they're happier, they're healthier, they get sick less. I mean, there's so many real tangible benefits of volunteering. And we see that every day. You see that in people's faces every day. And so, by and large, people who, once they do get out and volunteer, they come back.
Sure.
And, obviously we want you back at Loaves and Fishes, but if you go somewhere else, that's great too. Just do something, right? Volunteer, because it's good for the community. It's good for the people that ultimately that organization is serving. And quite honestly, it's good for you as a person to volunteer. There's a lot of tangible benefits. So,
and I'm really glad you put it that way, Mike, because there are people who are part of this community who every month they're at your site serving, who every month they are at your site serving. And I'm so grateful because that allows for what you just said, Mike, to be true, which is come serve. As a member of this community, I just want you serving because I know it's good for you, right? However, I am very aware, to use FMSC as an example, of the gap between the number of people who serve every month and the number of people who show up for Feed the Need. I am very aware of the gap between folks who show up to your similar kind of all-call moments and those who are here in the day-to-day. And of course, I'm not expecting everyone to be the Hebels who helped grow from a Good Shepherd mobile pack to Feed the Need Illinois. I'm not expecting this to be the specific calling that God's placed in your heart. But I do believe that the two people I'm talking to represent organizations that help live out our commandment to be in the community and to serve the community and care for the community. That is part of not only the mission of this church, but ultimately the mission of every believer. Where I want to begin to land the plane here, we had started talking about some misconceptions. One of the things that I'm particularly sensitive to for your organization, Mike, is there's a level in which I think people might go, am I the right person? I'm not sure I'm the right person to be able to help because I can get really nervous around people, or I can be someone who I don't know how to talk. Like I have social anxiety. I don't really want to engage with people. You mentioned this at the beginning about the many different ways to serve, but I'll give you a layup question, and say, if someone's looking to, what are you looking for in someone who's serving? Because I know you're looking for everybody, but how do you help that type of person go, no, we have a spot for you here?
Yes. Well, I think it's just communicating. Again, we have a lot of information on our website, but if somebody has a spark of interest in volunteering, just reach out to us, because we have so many different ways and times that you can volunteer. Again, if you're somebody that is not very social, we have volunteer opportunities where all you're doing is working on a computer and doing stuff, if that's what fits you. We have people that are super social, right? And they want to engage with other volunteers or staff or clients directly. And then everybody in between. And so no matter what your personality is and what your background is or abilities, there really is a spot for every single person to make a very valuable contribution in the form of volunteering.
Yeah, that's good. You talked about this pretty specifically earlier, Jess, so I want to ask you a slightly different question, which is, one of the things that I've seen happen at Good Shepherd a lot is one person gets that spark of interest, and then there are small groups coming, or then they have a circle of people around them who they've now brought into the experience. I imagine you have a lot of stories like that, but if I'm someone who's listening who, let's say hypothetically, I'm a small group leader of a group that meets on Sunday afternoons, and it's a bunch of young families, and while we serve sometimes, we don't necessarily have a specific serving mission. Let's just say hypothetically that that's who I am as a person, because that is who I am as a person, and it's not a hypothetical. How can you help folks understand the benefit of doing this with the people that they're already doing life with?
Yeah, it's exciting to volunteer together, not just all the benefits for yourself that Mike mentioned, but getting to work alongside people that you're doing life with, getting to see your kids volunteer. The youngest age we allow at the site is 5 years old, so anyone 5 and up can come pack. And it is just a different feeling to go with your children and have them learn about some of the things happening in the world and have them be able to make a difference. One of the things that we promote at Feed My Starving Children is it's kids feeding kids. We get so many young volunteers who, where else can they go to pack thousands of meals to feed their peers around the world? One thing I want to mention with the groups coming is the majority of our volunteers, I think over half of our volunteers at the Aurora site only come once a year. And if the people that only came once a year decided instead to come twice a year, only one more time during the year, that would be an incredible, I don't even know how many meals we could pack. It would be amazing. So if you're one of the people listening and you think, I go once a year either to feed the need or during the holiday season, and if you just came one more time, the difference that each of you could make with your small groups, with your friends, with your families. I don't know if that answered the question.
No, it does. I think the message becomes the same, which is, this is not something that I say out of guilt, dear listener. But when I see the type of work that happens at Feed My Starving Children, when I see the type of work that happens at Loaves and Fishes, I want you to participate in it, because I want the members of this church specifically, but anyone who takes the time to listen to the sound of my voice, to pay attention to the fact that we have a role to play in living out God's mission here and making sure that kids aren't hungry, making sure that people have all of their needs met, is a very tangible way to do that. And I think especially during a cultural moment like 2025, it becomes easy to be overwhelmed by all that is happening around you that you don't have control over. Mm-hmm. But you can have some agency in bettering your community by doing this. Mike, one of the things that stands out to me is you've been in this role for, I think you said 9 years. I would imagine you have seen the kind of work that you guys do change quite a bit over the course of those 9 years. The conversation I had with the mayor, I was very surprised at how often he was bringing up mental health. And it made me think of you guys, because I know you guys care for the whole person. What do you hope your clients get from the services you provide? Because I imagine you hope that it's not just, I got food for a day. What do you hope that relationship looks like?
Yeah. At the end of the day, we really strive to help people become self-sufficient. To say it another way, our job is to make sure people don't need us. And so,
that's awesome.
There's the physical health part of what we do, and we focus on providing healthy food for people, of course. but also the connection that there is to physical health and mental health is huge, right? If you're food insecure, the probability that you have mental health issues goes up a multiple compared to someone that's not food insecure.
Sure.
Huge correlation there. And so, and then with our other programs, besides just food, just helping people with other parts of their lives to help, keep them stable is a huge benefit to mental health, right? Reducing those stressors. Again, back on the food insecurity side, if you're parent of children and you don't know if you're going to have dinner that night, or you don't know if you're going to have food before they go to school that day, and that your child might not be able to learn like the other kids because they haven't eaten dinner last night and breakfast, that weighs heavily, right? And that puts people more at risk for, mental health issues.
Yeah.
And so even though we don't necessarily, or people may not think that we're in the mental health, business, if you will, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. It's critical. Absolutely.
And I know Feed Myself Starving Children is too, but you guys are doing it at such a global scale. The thing that I hope people hear from that too, in all these conversations, Mike, you touched on this earlier. This is not something that's happening out there. It's happening in our community. You guys both get a frontline seat to the idea of we're all just a few bad breaks away from being in some of those positions. And what I hope the folks who have listened to us until the end recognize is that I believe there is a biblical responsibility on us as members of the family of God to participate in the kind of work that you guys are doing. So I'm thrilled that Good Shepherd is the kind of place that builds a bridge for you so that you, individual listener, or you as a small group, know exactly where to go, exactly who to talk to. You guys might see Jess on a Sunday. You can go ask her these questions specifically. But I'm also particularly thrilled that as someone who's lived here my whole life, this is the kind of work that gets done in this community that impacts not only here in Naperville and the surrounding areas, but all over the world. So thank you all for listening. Mike and Jess, thank you guys for your time. And we'll talk to you all next week.
Thank you for listening to the Encounter Faith podcast. This podcast is a service of G. Shep Productions from Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Naperville, Illinois. All rights reserved. If you're in the area, we'd love to meet you on a Sunday morning at our 9 a.m. or 10:45 services. At Good Shepherd, we are inviting everyone to walk together in the calling of Christ for a life of eternal impact. This podcast is produced and hosted by me, Ross Cochran. And our theme song is Wake the Earth by 1111 Worship. Thank you for listening. We'll talk again soon.